Hey there, listeners. As seasons shift around the world, some of you are going into spring while others are moving into autumn, or known as fall. Different climates, different experiences, but the reminder is the same. Leadership is never static. Now, with leadership, it's always in season. The real challenge isn't which season you're in, it's how you choose to adapt and lead through it. So let's discuss.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Welcome to the Ask Denisepisode. This is a freestyle episode where I'm asked a question by our listeners, or I share my thoughts, experiences, and insights from working with many leaders around the globe. Hey there, listeners. I'm excited about this topic because today I want to explore the powerful connection between seasons, in other words, weather, that kind of nature seasons, leadership, and adaptability. Because right now, across the world, we're in transition. In the Northern Hemisphere, the leaves are starting to fall and the days are getting shorter. It's a season of reflection, letting go, and preparing for renewal. Meanwhile, in the Southern Hemisphere where I am, blossoms are appearing, energy is building, the days are getting longer, and growth is beginning. Different seasons, different experiences. But one common thread, change is happening everywhere. And that's the heart of leadership. Leadership isn't linear, it's cyclical. And just like nature, teams and organizations move through their own seasons. So let's break that down. I'm going to go through the different seasons and I'll just give you a little bit of an idea about things. But the season of planting, this is spring. Spring is the season for new beginnings. Seeds are sown, life returns, and energy starts to rise. Now in leadership, planting is where the ideas take root. Leaders are sharing visions, setting direction, and investing in relationships. It's often a time of planning, setting culture, and experimenting with ideas or possibilities. Planting requires patience. You don't see the results immediately. But just like in nature, what you plant, whether it's things like trust, vision, or strategy, it will determine the quality of your future growth. Leaders who tend to skip this season often wonder why momentum never takes off for them. So that's the season of planting, in other words, spring. The season of growth, in other words, this is summer. Summer is full of vitality, sunshine, and long days where things tend to flourish. In leadership, this is the season of momentum and energy. Teams are moving, projects are underway, and opportunities start opening up. The challenge for leaders here is to nurture without overloading, because growth can be exciting, but it can also burn people out if it isn't managed very carefully. Now, your role as a leader in this season is like a gardener, providing resources, removing obstacles, and creating the right environment for people to thrive. Growth is not just about speed, but about sustainability. So that is the second season, which we're talking about, the season of growth, which is around summer. Now, the season of harvest, this is autumn, or in some areas of the world call it fall. Autumn is where crops are gathered and results are visible, and the land prepares for rest. In leadership, harvest is the season of achievement and reflection. The hard work pays off. In other words, the goals are achieved, milestones celebrated, and the lessons gathered. But here's the key. Harvest isn't only about enjoying success. It's also about gratitude and reinvestment. Leaders in this season should ask the following. Hey, what worked well? What could we have done better? And what we will carry forward into the next cycle. Because things work in cycles and they keep coming around. So too often leaders push or rush past the harvest season, missing the chance to capture things like insights and recognize their people. But just as farmers replenish the soil, leaders must reinvest in their people, systems to prepare for the next round of planting. So there was season number 3, which is the season of harvest, autumn, or known as fall. Now, the last one is the season of winter. And of course, that is in relation to winter. Now, winter is colder, quieter, and often barren on the surface. But beneath, the roots are strengthening and the ground is preparing for new life. In leadership, winter is a season of resilience and renewal. So progress may feel slow, but this is the time for leaders to step back, reassess, and focus inwards. It's about strengthening the culture, investing in capability, and allowing space for the rest and recovery. There's one thing I've got to get you to think about here. Without winter, there is no spring. Without pausing, there is no readiness for the next cycle of growth. And there's a big point that I want to make an overall summary around these 4 seasons. That not everyone is in the same season at the same time. Right now, as I said, in the Northern Hemisphere, you may be in autumn or fall, while in the Southern Hemisphere it is in spring. The same is true in business and in leadership. One team may be in harvest mode, while another is still planting seeds. We see this a lot, and we see a lot of businesses taking off and others struggling, and then there'll be a cycle and the others are doing well. Property is another good example. There's a buyer's market, seller's market, things going up, things going down. There's also those cycles. That's why leadership requires awareness, adaptability, and timing. You can't lead every team, every project, or every season the same. The best leaders, they don't fight the seasons, and they don't fight the season that they're in. But what they do is they recognize it, they lean into it, and they prepare for what's next. Change isn't an interruption to leadership. Change is the pattern itself. And so leaders, if you're listening to this at the gym right now, because I know there's some people at the gym and they listen to these episodes, or out walking, or if you're actually driving, that's all cool. But if you're able to sit down with a pen and paper, I would actually write down these things that I'm going to share. Now, if you're not able to, I would encourage you to go back to this episode and re-listen to it. Because I want to leave you with some questions to reflect and even probably journal about it as well. And it's in relation to the 4 seasons that I just talked about. So if we go to the planting, the spring period, what new ideas or relationships or habits do you think you might need to plant right now? Are you creating the right environment for those seeds to grow? Number 2 is growth, and it's around the summer side of things. Where in your leadership are you seeing growth? What could accelerate that growth, and what might be actually holding you back? The next one is around harvest, autumn, or fall. What recent wins or milestones can you celebrate with your team? What lessons have you learned that you need to carry forward into the next cycle? The last one here is around winter. So where do you need to pause, rest, or rebuild to strengthen your foundation? What might you need to let go of to prepare for the next season? And what I'm going to ask you to do, and encourage you to do, is to take a few minutes today to reflect on these areas. Leadership isn't about forcing the wrong season. It's about recognizing where you are, leaning into it, and preparing for what's next. I love you joining me on this episode of the Ask Dennis and Leadership is Changing podcast. What I'd like you to remember, though, is that wherever you are in the world, leadership is about adapting to the season you're in and preparing yourself and your people for the season ahead. Hey, look, listeners, if this episode has resonated with you, please share it with a colleague and subscribe to the podcast. And let's continue to help leaders thrive in a world that never stops changing. Until next time, keep adapting, keep leading, and keep making a difference. That's it, listeners, for this episode. It's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for joining me on the Leadership is Changing podcast. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.